Ukraine and the sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet. At the end of July 2025, Ukraine announced a new law directly targeting Russia's so-called shadow fleet. Aging, untraceable, and uninsured vessels used to transport oil and circumvent Western sanctions. This move came amid increasing pressure from the EU and UK on Moscow's energy sector, including a reduction of the Russian crude oil price cap from $60 to $47.6 per barrel. This was a significant financial squeeze, considering Russia's heavy reliance on energy exports. On the surface, Ukraine's action was praised by Western media as bold and timely. But is it really so? Upon closer analysis, this law seems more symbolic than practical. Under President Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine appears to be sending a message to its Western allies. We remain firm, proactive, and aligned with your efforts. However, viewed in broader context, this could also be a diversionary tactic, an attempt to distract from Ukraine's simmering internal problems. One must ask, does Ukraine truly have the capacity to monitor and sanction the vessels of the shadow fleet? Or is this merely a political gesture aimed at appeasing the EU and UK, especially after Brussels withheld €1.5 billion in aid over disputes related to anti-corruption laws? The sanctions law empowers the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, and intelligence agencies to independently designate vessels as threats to national security, bypassing reliance on international sanctions lists. While this marks a step toward autonomous sanctioning tools, it also raises questions about feasibility. As a war-torn country, does Ukraine possess the manpower, technology, and financial resources to track hundreds of ships at sea? Moreover, the EU has already blacklisted over 100 Russian ships, and the UK has sanctioned 135 oil tankers, suggesting that international efforts are well ahead of Ukraine's. So, what is the real role of this law? Perhaps it's simply a way for Kyiv to prove that it's still in the game. Internal crisis, corruption, and lost trust. Behind the bold facade of sanctions, Ukraine is grappling with a profound internal crisis. One of the most shocking events occurred on July 30th, 2025, when a Ukrainian Air Force Major was arrested for allegedly spying for Russia. Not just any pilot. He was a key officer with access to sensitive information about F-16 and Mirage 2000 fighter jets, strategic weapons supplied by the West to help Ukraine regain air superiority. He is accused of passing base coordinates, flight schedules, and even tactical suggestions to Russia's GRU, Military Intelligence Agency. If true, this was not merely betrayal. It was a knife in the back from within the trusted ranks. It's chilling to consider the potential damage such a leak could cause. The F-16s donated by the Netherlands in October 2024 and France's Mirage 2000s delivered in early 2025 represent Ukraine's best hopes against Russian airstrikes. If their details were compromised, Russia could execute pinpoint strikes, neutralizing these assets before they ever take off. This case is not just an intelligence failure. It exposes the fractures within Ukraine's military and society. Adding fuel to the fire, Ukraine's parliament passed Law 12414 on July 16th, granting the Prosecutor General powers over two key anti-corruption bodies, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, NABU, and the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, SAPO. With these powers, the Prosecutor General can withdraw investigations, appoint staff, and halt probes into top officials. In plain terms, this law provides a get-out-of-jail-free card for Ukraine's political elite, a move that runs counter to the anti-corruption reforms backed by the EU since the 2014 Maidan Revolution. Transparency International called this a devastating blow to the independence of Ukraine's anti-corruption system. The EU, which considers NABU and SAPO preconditions for financial aid, responded by cutting €1.5 billion from a €4.5 billion support package. This wasn't just a warning, it was a clear message. If Ukraine fails to uphold transparency, the flow of aid will be at risk. In a country fighting for its survival, why would the government choose to erode trust among both its allies and its own people? Desperation and betrayal from within. The arrested Air Force Major is only the tip of the iceberg. In recent months, multiple reports have emerged of Ukrainian civilians sharing military base coordinates with Russia, or even expressing support for Russian airstrikes on social media. These actions reflect not only dissatisfaction, but also deep despair within Ukrainian society. People feel trapped in a war with no end in sight, burdened by harsh conscription policies and a lack of government support. Since 2022, Ukraine has failed to establish a clear demobilization or rotation system for its soldiers. Under wartime law, troops can only be discharged when martial law is lifted, an unlikely scenario in the current environment. The result? Tens of thousands of soldiers are stuck on the front lines, fighting with no end date, no rest, no hope. A friend once told me about a Ukrainian soldier who had fought non-stop for 3 years, granted only 30 days of leave annually, and even that was sometimes canceled due to lack of replacements. Zelensky's response when asked about demobilization, when Ukraine wins, sounds resolute, but to exhausted soldiers, it's nothing less than a life sentence. While Russia mobilizes 50,000 new troops each month, Ukraine struggles to enlist 25 to 30,000, insufficient to rotate forces or ease the burden on long-serving veterans. Morale is plummeting, and discontent is spreading from the battlefield to the home front. Some members of Ukraine's parliament have proposed 2 solutions: increasing penalties for draft evasion and introducing a demobilization law. Yet neither has materialized, leaving citizens stuck in limbo and growing increasingly disillusioned. Who is really being sanctioned? Ukraine's sanctions targeting Russia, applauded by Western media, seem to be little more than a facade, masking deep internal fractures. Corruption, betrayal, and a crumbling social contract are undermining Ukraine from within, arguably more dangerously than any Russian offensive. While AI is helping the world advance, from assisting students to empowering small businesses, Ukraine is struggling with battles not just on the front lines, but within the hearts of its people. The real question is, in this war, who is truly being sanctioned? Is it Russia, with its shadowy oil fleet? Or is it Ukraine, slowly unraveling under the weight of its own internal decay?